So the past few weeks, we've been going through a new series called Parables. One of the things we like to do here at Harbor is we just really like to open up the Word. The Word speaks for itself. I get to help explain some of this for us, but our prayer is that God would speak strongly through His Word. And I think one of the best ways of doing that, the way that we can understand in our times of life, is Jesus uses parables often in the New Testament. And these parables are things that we talked about this last week and the week before. Parables that are stories, often fictitious or fictional, that come alongside the truth to explain the truth. We saw stories that are ones that we can read, but these stories also read us. That's one of the beautiful parts of it. I'm trying to think if this is turned a little bit. Okay, that's probably not any better, but whatever. Stories that read us. And I was thinking about it last week. I tried to relate Bluey to you guys, and it failed. So I've got a couple other things in store for today, but I often think of like what resonates in us with certain stories, whether that's movies, whether that's shows, whether that's plays, things that invoke emotion in you, speak truth to you in a way that maybe just hearing it at face value you might reject. Jesus used parables in a way to tell us truth in ways that we would understand. So it's coming alongside the truth to explain the truth. John Piper says it this way: the parables, we said this last week, the parables are more like thermometers than thermostats. They reveal a person's spiritual condition. Okay, so more like a personal thermostat. That's, hey, we're going to read these, it's going to read you, and it's going to tell you and us kind of a bit about you. It's going to give us some spiritual temperatures, all right, some spiritual vitals, things like that. The parables can often jump off the page. We see in Jesus' time when he's telling the parables that some of the people hear it and they're given life and they understand, oh my gosh, that makes sense. And others, oftentimes religious elites at the time, Pharisees, would hear it. You'd think it makes sense to them, but no, it bounces right off their hardened hearts. So as we read ours today, I encourage you to soften your heart with me as I soften my heart as we hear the word of God. Wherever you land on what you think of God, what you think of Jesus, hear the parable as a story. Try to seek out the truth in it today and what you think that means and why it would be being taught. Who is this Jesus that's teaching it and all of that. So that's where we're at with our series. And we're going to be doing this throughout the summer. So please come and dig into these parables with us each week. Today, this one's called the parable of the rich fool. Last week we did the rich and foolish builders. So kind of similar terminology, but it's a different story, but similar, and it kind of plays off that one a little bit. But this one's called the parable of the rich fool. And we're in Luke chapter 12, verse 13 through 30. Actually, the parable itself, 13 through 21. So this is our parable today. I'll read it for us. So Jesus has a large crowd of thousands following him, and he's in Jerusalem at this time. And he's just been teaching on many different things. He's been teaching on the cost of discipleship. He's been teaching on all of these wonderful ideas. You see other parables before this. And then so in the midst, so something like this, someone called out from the crowd. Someone just yelled out a question. Teacher, or not even a question. Teacher, please tell my brother to divide my father's estate with me. So someone yells out a personal problem. Hey, my brother and I are fighting. Can you settle this? Because you're a teacher. Often in that context, rabbis or teachers, or they would have been seen as people that could often sit down and help sort out familial affairs or court affairs. It was kind of their court and religious things were tied together. Jesus is not a rabbi or a teacher in the sense that they would be referring to here. He's called rabbi because of his teachings are so wondrous, but he was not a Pharisee or something like that. But anyways, someone just thought, why the heck not? I'm going to see if Jesus can get me some more goods on my inheritance. Teacher, please tell my brothers to divide our father's estate with me. Jesus replied, friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that? Then he said, beware. Here it is. Guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. Then he told them a story, a parable. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, what should I do? I don't have room for all my crops. Then he said, I know. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll have my room enough to store all my wheat and other goods. I'll have room enough for all my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, saying to himself, by the way, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. Of course. But God said to him, you fool, You will die this very night. Then who will get everything you worked for? Yes, and Jesus finishes the parable with this. Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. Okay, we're going to take a look at a few notes for this. That's it on its face value. We've read that. Now, there's a little bit more we'll get to in how he explains some of this. But general notes for us today, I want to take a look at. We see in verse 15 an immediate one. And you think about this, if I asked you what jumps off the page from that parable at you, what might you write down? And maybe you should be writing those things down. Maybe I should be writing those things down. The things I wrote down are these. Life is not measured by how much we own. And of course, we talked about that last week and what you build your house on. But today we're talking about how do you measure your life? And what measurement and what metric and what system do you measure? Life is, what we do know is life isn't measured by how much we own. Earthly wealth without a rich relationship with God is foolish. It's exactly pulling from the verses here. The next one, greed and jealousy can rob us of even what is most precious. This guy's asking for division with his brother, with his family. He's asking for this legal intervention between him and someone who he is brothers with. Why? There's a greed, there's a jealousy, there's an envy, there's a desire for possession that supersedes at this point in this man's life even his own flesh and blood. And another one here. We are generous because God has been generous to us. So we know life is not about accumulating all the toys in the toy box. And all of our things that we have, all the wealth that we have, without a relationship with Jesus is just dust. It's foolish thinking that we own it all. Another one here. This is my last one of these notes. Why? Because we are to be stewards, not owners. We are stewards, not owners. Everything that you have, everything that I have, the time that we live, the place we are, the gifts, skills, talents, abilities, family, whether they be good or bad, all the toys in the toy box that we might have, these are things we're stewards of. There are no bags on the side of our hearse that we get to take with us, right? These are sober truths. These are ones that when we're young, we're full of energy, we don't necessarily like to think about. But guys, this is how we get to design. Understanding this concept will help you in designing how you want to live your life effectively and not be, as Jesus would put, foolish. This guy was successful as a businessman. He was someone in whom much food, which was a big measurement of money back then. They measured things of currency by their currency and by food. How many days' wages, how much to eat in that time. He had enough for years and years, and he told himself, myself, friend, person I love the most, sit back, relax, eat, drink, and be merry, right? These are things that we cannot base our life off of, because when they're gone, they're gone. And he's not guaranteed them tomorrow. And the irony is that Jesus says, you've lived up everything so your soul can be safe, yet your soul is going to be demanded of you tonight. Now what are you going to do with all this stuff? Where have you put your faith? And that not only goes for material possession, but also accolades, something we like to chase. You think about applying for jobs or for school or anything that, high school kind of taught us. We want to make sure we involved ourselves with this club. And Michaela and I watched Gilmore Girls, all of Gilmore Girls in November, December. We're holding a baby and we're like, this is our life now. We're watching Gilmore Girls all winter long. It was funny with one of the main girls, Rory, her whole life is based around getting accolades so she can get accepted to an Ivy League school. And you can see it kind of looking back, especially with how college has changed in 20 years since that was made, but how futile and just meaningless and how stupid it all was to be like, I just want to make sure that you saw that I was on this and I'm helping these people so that I can put on paper that I helped with these people. Like accolades, right? Even in business and accomplishment. Yeah, well, where there's Seinfeld episodes about the story topper, where he's like, there's always that person in the room with you that will out-tell a story that you have. If you think you're proud of something, there's always someone in the room be like, well, we had a friend in high school, we called him the 5 wisdom tooth guy, because He's like, I had a wisdom tooth taken out. And the other guy's like, well, I had 4 taken out at the same time. And then there's another guy busts in the room. Well, I had 5. I have a genetic disorder. I have 5 wisdom teeth, and they're all taken out at the same. And there's always that guy in the room. Okay. And, maybe we're that person sometimes. I found myself being like, oh, well, to bolster my insecurities, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I throw the best parts of me at you so that you don't know the worst parts of me. Do we do that? Surely all of us know that we do that to some extent. Why? Because we hoard up accomplishments like we hoard up possessions, and we hoard up places we've gone. It may not be greed in its typical sense, but it is pervasive, and it goes into all kinds of different places. So greed and pride go together in that. Let me tell you a quick story that none of you have definitely ever heard ever. Now, I tried Bluey. I promised that I would come back with better. This one surely happened when we were old enough to watch this. Who here has seen the movie Up? There we go. Bluey was 2 hands last week, and it was Michaela and Kerrigan. So that's, here's the deal. I'd actually not watched this movie fully until this last week. Yeah, Michaela knew that, and then immediately we're on Disney. Thank you, Zach, for the Disney Plus. Anyways. It struck me, we were talking about this, we were planning this parable, and it struck me as I was writing this, that this is a great example of the parable of the rich fool. So if we're talking parables in modern day taste of what we might understand, this story, this wonderfully animated, beautiful, heartfelt story, is a parable of something deeper and truer, right? Do we understand? That's all a parable is for us. If you're a writer of stories, a creator of film, if you're an animator, you're doing these things because you're trying to not just tell a cool story, but tell the truth behind the story, right? A story that we can watch, and that we can read, that also reads us. And I was like, so we watched Monsters, Inc., Up, and WALL-E all in the past 2 weeks because Michaela's got me on this crusade of all of the animated movies on Disney Plus that I haven't seen, by the way. So just, you can throw shade at me if you want, but whatever. So anyways, let me just tell you a couple things about this. One angle that caught my eye was that despite having a really good life with his wife, the main character, Carl, was left deeply sad and dissatisfied after his passing, understandably grief. And the movies can be understood as a cycle of grief, and there's all kinds of angles. But one angle I'm going to tell you about, understandable. However, he had accumulated so many things and so much memorabilia, and he wasn't willing to part with any of it. He was holding on to all of it. When his nostalgic, prized mailbox is damaged by construction workers, a guy bumps into it. They've got cityscape all around where his house used to be. The whole world has changed, and this guy, he's not willing to move on, which, again, understandable. When his mailbox that he and his wife put up together is damaged, he actually lashes out and hits this guy on the head. And eventually that kind of leads to he's going to be sent out of his home. So what happens is he ends up lifting him and his entire possessions, all his house, everything he has, up with balloons, which were his profession, into the air to fly to South America, the place that he and his wife had always dreamt to be in. Spoilers, sorry guys, spoilers of this movie, spoilers. They flew to South America, and a whole story ensues. But one thing that's happening is he's doing his best to preserve the belongings he clung to so tightly. And again, it's really hard to demonize Carl because you see his story, you see all of his relationship play out on screen. But it hit me, I was like, man, but this is what it turns into when we cling tightly to the things that we own, when we put our worth in what we own, and even in the people that we're with, which is very hard for us to point any fingers at. We love the people that we're with, but when they become our God, when they replace God in our hierarchy, even the people, our homes, our memories become insufficient, and they can't possibly bear the weight of where God should be in our life. So in the end, he decides to leave all of those things behind and enjoy meaning in his new life. Supporting this boy, Russell, who was a Boy Scout that comes and helps him out, whose father's out of the picture. So he finds new meaning, and again, good picture of post-grief, but also this idea that his life did not consist of the home that he carried with him. But he found new life in the boy that helped pull him out of it. And I know it's an animation, but this movie is a modern-day parable. Understand it as that. So when it's just because we're reading the Bible, sometimes we see the Bible as ancient, archaic nonsense that has no application to us today. Absolutely incorrect. Total application to us today. Total, and it's 100% needed. And we see our need for stories and truth in movies like this. And just as Jesus described the rich fool in this parable, Carl understood his own foolishness and made some great adjustments. So learning from Up, isn't life more than our possessions? Isn't life more than our even memories? We have a higher calling and we have life. We draw breath. We can do it. So, not Bluey. But guess what? Y'all are going to understand Bluey one day. I hope that you understand Bluey one day. That means you're in a really good spot in life. Okay, 3 main notes we're going to go through, and then we'll be done and move into our discussion time. I want to talk about this. Number 1, R.C. Sproul, I listened to a good sermon of his in preparation in this sermon, and he says it this way: covetousness is the father of greed. You know, if you're insecure, I think I felt this in a relationship I had in college. I felt, and I remember feeling this way. I never felt jealousy until I was insecure and I started coveting the attention of people or of a person I was dating or whatever it might have been. And it starts to make you hate the things that are taking that person from you or whatever. It's an ugly, hideous monster that you can let loose into your life. And it stems to jealousy, which is the opposite of gratitude. Covetousness or jealousy is the opposite of gratitude. Not having. Jealousy is not the opposite of having something. It's the opposite of being grateful for what you do have. And I found myself in a position of insecurity that was jealous and then suddenly was greedy. It was afraid to let go, afraid to lose, afraid to not be in control. And if you felt that before, it's an actually incredibly weak place to be feeling-wise. Even though you start asserting your control outwardly, you are losing and slipping control inwardly. And so interesting, it's the father of greed. So when we're jealous or we're unsatisfied with what we had, when we look at God and say, how could you possibly do this to me? We are walking the line of jealousy and covetousness and not the grateful path, which is, Lord, despite you doing this, I trust that your ways are good, and thank you for what I do have. Carl having his house, Lord, thank you for as good of a life and walk out of a relationship as possibly I could ever expect. Because at some point this had to happen with my wife or whatever it is. Instead, he's angry, bitter, and there's a jealousy and a regret that exists in him of, we didn't do this and this and this, right? Life does not consist of what you possess. So we talk about goals. R.C. Sproul said it this way. There was a man that was a Christian in his church. And he asked him, he says, what are your life goals? And this man said, by the age of 50, I want to have made $50 million. By age 50, 50 million. And so I don't do that, then I'm not successful. I haven't met my goal in life. And Sproul was appalled by that answer. How can you be a Christian and have that be your life goal? Because that's measuring your life on what you possess. And that's asserting yourself. And this isn't some, being rich is bad. It has nothing to do with that. It's about what you do with it, how you view it. What does your heart fall in love with? And if it's money, then that's going to be a problem. If you're someone who is generous, again, we are given to generously so that we can give generously. And if you treat your money as a way of glorifying God, and you've been given so that way, if you have $50 million, you can honor God with that and give and serve and love with that. And if you have $50, you in the same breath, you can be just as glorifying to God with 50 and 50 million, right? So then we don't go in our poverty, say, Lord, how could you shake your fist at the earth and at the world and be bitter? Because then is money really going to solve your problems if that's your attitude, right? No, it's not. It's a heart. So greed is not a financial issue, it's a heart issue. If you think that only rich people are greedy, have you looked at yourself, right? There are a lot of wonderful people with a lot of money that do wonderful things with it. So it's not that we are talking against that. So I don't want you to hear me talking against that today because that's an incredible thing. But if your life goal is measured by doing this by 50. Another one, when I was in Europe traveling in 2019, I encountered a woman who was measuring her life by how many countries she had gone to. She said, I'm really trying to hit that 30 countries by 30 thing. And I was like, what? It's like, I grew up in Kansas. And John and I are out there. But she's like, I'm a failure if I don't do that. Like, that's my thing. I have to do that. And so, and then away from that, I start thinking, man, maybe I should try to go to, and you start measuring yourself against each other in this way. It's just jealousy. It's silly. It's immature. Another one would be Tom Brady. One of the famous quotes after like his third or fourth Super Bowl, they asked him, well, how many Super Bowls is enough? And he just said, it's always just one more. And in Kansas City, you might feel some of that. After 3, it's like, all right, guys, have we had enough? And everyone's like, no, one more, right? And that's how it's always going to be. And if you've encountered sin or addiction in your life or any kind of thing where sin has run you, it's not like, man, I'd love to go all the way down this horrible path of sin. It's just one more step. Just one more thing. Just one more video. Just one more hit. Just one more thing I can do here. Sin is always just one more. But it's never enough. So don't measure your life based on what you have and what you accumulate, and by what other people have and what they've accumulated. Okay? So don't measure yourself that way, and that means do not do it to yourself. It's foolish. You can do it, but it's not good for you, and it's not right. It's always a measuring game. It's always a how much can I, and guess what? Only Christ can satisfy that longing in your life. And he's calling you to be obedient, not successful. Success in his eyes is not outward, building the biggest church, building the biggest business, having the best bank account, buying the nicest things. So hear that today. Hear the wisdom of that story today as we keep moving. Most of us are never content with what we have. Greed, insecurity, entitlement. What I deserve is another thing. It's like if you are talented at something, if you feel like you're good at something, and you don't attain the levels you set for yourself, you start to think, man, I deserve better. What I deserve, all this kind of stuff. And it's just a horrendous game, again, that has no end and only ends in your suffering. So let's take a look at number 2. Guys, a Christian is a generous person. It should be. And it's a place that we should strive to be. Generosity. Again, why? Gratitude, generosity, they move against jealousy and greed. A Christian should not be someone who's hoarding 50 million for the sake of hoarding. I mean, again, they can be generous and have that, but it's hoarding it to do that. It's someone who is eager to use the resources, the abilities, that what's given to them for the kingdom. We know the parable of the rich young ruler talks about how a rich young man comes to Jesus and asks him, what must I do to also, inherit the kingdom of God? And he says, sell all you, or what does the Bible say? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, spirit, strength, all of these things. And love your neighbor as yourself. I've done this. I've kept the law since I was a boy. And then Jesus, who had pity on him, he felt for him, looks at him and says, okay, now what you must do is sell all you have, give the money to the poor, and come follow me. But knowing that was the highest ask. And it says the rich young ruler walked away very sad because he loved what he had. Again, you can measure your life by success, and in your eyes, you can be a great person. You can do all the right things. You can even give to charity. You can even go to church all your life and all that. But if your heart is not in love with Jesus and is not prioritizing Jesus over all, then you're missing out. You're missing the point. It's going to be tough. A Christian is a generous person, not because society expects you as a Christian to be a generous person, but because you understand that Christ has been generous to you. So how dare we hoard our things? We named Harbor for a reason. We didn't want to name it bunker in the ground hiding all of our things and all of our people forever, or stronghold that you have to have castle walls come down to get into. We want it to be harbor. Why? Because you can zip on in and zip on out. It's open. It's available. The gospel is for you. We're going to have that for you. We're not hiding. We wanted to do it in a public place for the same reason. And we're trying our best, but we're trying to be generous with what's been given to us. A Christian is a generous person. There's no room for greed, jealousy, grudges even, revenge. Again, entitlement breeds grudges and revenge. I should have justice. They did this to me. I don't deserve that. I'm going to get them for that. That's revenge, and that is not of Christ. That's a spirit of greed. You have to make sure you get yours. Bitterness. It steals life. Christians do not have room for these things in their life. And again, we all struggle with them, yeah? We'll hear it from the word today that we can let those things go. Don't measure your life by what you own and what you deserve. Giving people what's coming to them. And we suffer from this. How could I ever, and again, forgiveness weaves its way into this. It's going to be really hard to forgive someone if you still think that you need to get them theirs, right? I'm fully convinced that grudges have no place in heaven. We don't get to take those with us either. Solve those things now. Forgive that person in your heart now. Even if you never talk to them again personally, give them to the Lord. Give that person, give that situation, give that hurt, give all of that pride, whatever it is that's holding that up, saying, Lord, I'm too angry or proud to let you into my life any further. I'm greedy. I'm going to hold on to this. I'll give you what's easy to give, but what's hard to give, my hurt, I'm not going to do it because you should give me justice. How dare you? When we can say, how dare you to God, it comes from a place of greed, entitlement, and pride. And man, I'm guilty of that too. I get it. Carl from Up that we're talking about is saying, I know better. I need justice. These guys, I'm going to get them. I'm going to get them. And one day it comes out and bap, he hits the guy, right? There's no room for these things. Christians don't need to be insecure in what they have because everything is what? We're stewards, not owners. We're stewards, not owners. We can be generous, and if someone takes from us, we can turn the other cheek. These are things that being a Christian, knowing Jesus, enables you to do. The world does not teach you to do these things. Only Jesus does. Don't fear losing. Don't fear losing. There's a Yoda quote in there that I don't have perfectly down in my head, but those of you that know, what is it? And fear of loss leads to suffering. There is also that one. That one is that's the other Yoda quote. But there's one that's to Anakin. Anyways, if that's too much. Maybe that'll be another parable for another time.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate.
Hate leads to suffering. Yeah, okay. That's the one. Thank you, PJ. That's the idea, is that he's fearing to lose, right? The whole dark side, everyone died because he didn't want to lose. Don't fear losing. If Star Wars and Bluey don't work, I don't know what to do with you people. We are stewards of everything we have. Okay, nothing that you have now, even the people in your life, you will get to take with you when you go. Whether you like hearing the sober truth today or not, you got guess what? That's it. So let's make sure we live our lives according to that. And what a blessing that we've been given stewardship over such wonderful things. Okay, our last one, number 3. Life is not found in the excess of our possessions. Life is not found in the excess of possessions. The term hedonism is well defined as this. The good is found, man, am I typing? The good is found in avoidance of pain and the attainment of pleasure. We saw this in the Roman and the Greek cultures that Christianity kind of broke their way into. Hedonism is eat, drink, and be merry. So the term we see at the end of the scripture passage, eat, drink, and be merry. Don't worry, go ahead and just do what you got to do, man. Eat, you drink. It's all about avoiding pain and attaining pleasure. And we, in America, have a big piece of our culture that is hedonism. Maybe you've heard this term. It's like, oh, it's like a church. All it means is that your life is based on avoiding pain and attaining pleasure. Getting the most out of this life. Well, you got it, baby. You only live once. Go ahead and get it. Carpe diem, whatever the slogan of the decade is, right? Go out and get yours while you still can. Have as much sex, eat as much food, get as drunk as you can, party as much as you can. You're going to be old someday. Don't waste your life when you're young. I have to point out, Michaela wrote, she's with the baby right now, but she wrote a really good article that she released last night after I'd even written this, that was about a woman who told her when we were about to get married to not get married at a young age because you need to live your 20s up, sister. You need to make sure you get out there and do it. Don't tie yourself down. You'll hate your life. And Michaela just wrote from the other perspective of like, I love my life and I'm glad I got married when I did. That's what I was doing and I didn't miss out. But our culture would tell you, you need to make sure you maximize your pleasure. And if you're in pain, that means injustice is happening or, you know what I mean? And it's just so immature of a culture. And it's one of those things where, adversity breeds maturity a lot of the time. And this is an immature culture. And we live in one. And we embody it sometimes. We talked about last week, we don't want to be adult babies. We don't want to be dependent, always living on milk, not accomplishing things, not living our calling, always seeking the next little pleasure, not having foresight to the next real accomplishment and the real thing we need to do. We don't want to live our life this way. Life's not found in the excess, right? So this is, it would say, have as much, do all these things as possible. And R.C. Sproul says it this way: eat, drink, and marry is the creed of the fool. The stupidest thing you can do with your life is to spend it seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, when blessedness is yours for the asking. But by nature, beloved, it's we are all fools. By nature, we are all fools. We do this. Our natural predisposition is for this, is for hedonism. But Christ gives us another way. So, let me read for you one more passage here, the continuation. So right after our parable, this is where Jesus turns to his disciples and talks to them directly. So he tells this parable, and people are going to understand it, right? But he turns to the guys that he's discipling, and he explains some things to them. And this is one, you might recognize this passage. Maybe you didn't know this was right before the parable that we read today, but this is Luke 12:22 through 34. Then, turning to his disciples, Jesus said, "That is why I tell you," so right after the parable, in the same thought, "that is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life, whether you have enough food to eat or enough clothes to wear, for life is more than food, and your body more than clothing. Look at the ravens. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for God feeds them. And you are far more valuable to him than any birds. Can all your worries add a single moment to your life? And if worry can't accomplish a little thing like that, what's the use of worrying over bigger things? Look at the lilies and how they grow. They don't work or make their clothing, yet Solomon in all of his glory was not dressed as beautifully as they are. And if God cares so wonderfully for flowers that are here today and thrown into the fire tomorrow, he will certainly care for you. Why do you have so little faith? And don't be concerned about what to eat and what to drink. Don't worry about such things. These things dominate the thoughts of unbelievers all over the world, but your Father already knows your needs. Seek the kingdom of God above all else, and he will give you everything you need. So don't be afraid, little flock. This is Jesus speaking tenderly now. Don't be afraid, little flock, for he gives your Father great happiness to give you the kingdom. We're talking about inheritance here. He's answering the inheritance question. Your Father in heaven, great happiness to give you the kingdom. And he says, sell your possessions and give to those in need. This will store up treasure for you in heaven. And the purses of heaven are never get old or develop holes. And that's interesting. We'll get to that. Your treasure will be safe. No thief can steal it, and no moth can destroy it, because it's treasure that we don't have a concept for. It's eternal life, dwelling with God. We try to build that up like the Tower of Babel with our possessions. And then 34, this is the line. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will be also. Where your treasure is, there your heart is also. Well, as we think about that today, let me just highlight a couple of spots. The desires of your heart will also be. So what do you treasure in your life? What looks like treasure to you? Do you treasure things that ultimately draw life away from you or give you life? What do you treasure? Where's your heart at? In hedonism, the heart is in what I can attain. The things that I have, things that I get. With the Lord, it's, Lord, how can I glorify you? The things of your heart. Have life in you, my creator. The one who's designed me, designed our world. Surely life is more than the immediate gratifications. Pastor Andy Stanley says it this way: greed is not a financial issue, it's a heart issue. I said that earlier, but here it is again. R.C. Sproul again. Rich people are greedy for the same reason poor people are greedy, because they are people. Gratitude, not poverty, cures greed. Gratitude, not poverty. So when I think about, I process this in the relationship I had in college, where I remember thinking, Gratitude, if I write down everything I'm thankful for, the people in my life, I made them into a list. I put their names down and I wrote down all the good qualities I could think of those people. I remember doing that and I was like, why am I doing this? But it was literally like pouring water on a fire. It was putting out this insecurity, jealousy, greed in my heart. Just pouring this on there. And it was because gratitude not only is the opposite of greed, but it cures greed. And when you're in a relationship, you don't want to be greedy. And when you're in the church, you don't want to be greedy. And when you have money, you don't want to be greedy. And when you accomplish things, you don't want to be greedy. You want to give these things away. When you have real love in your heart, it's something you wish to give, not hold tightly and enjoy forever on your own. It's something you want to give. That's why we focus on community here in this place. Why? Because community is something we want to be able to give to each other in this way. Okay, I'm going to finish it with this. C.S. Lewis says it this way. In Mere Christianity, the principle runs through all life from top to bottom. Give up yourself, and you will find your real self. Lose your life, and you will save it. Submit to death, death of your ambitions and favorite wishes every day, and the death of your whole body in the end. Submit with every fiber of your being, and you will find eternal life. Keep back nothing. Nothing that you have not given away will really be yours. Nothing in you that has not died will ever be raised from the dead. Look for yourself, and you will find in the long run only hatred, loneliness, despair, rage, ruin, and decay. But look for Christ, and you will find him, and with him, everything else thrown in. I'll go back to that. Look for him and you'll find him. So it's truly, when we're holding tightly to the things we have, we're afraid to lose them. Christ calls us to give of ourselves and our lives to him. We truly gain the things we're actually looking for. And honestly, I was having a meeting today where I was talking about this. When I remember moving home from Nashville 6 years ago and giving up a part of me that I wanted to pursue in professional music and the industry, things like that. And I thought I wouldn't play music nearly as much. And the amount of music I played in the last 5 years, and especially now, there's times where I'm playing music like 7 days a week. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I thought I submitted this to God as a skill of mine, and I thought it was going to be gone. And it turns out he has recycled it and used it in far better ways than I ever could have on my own. He's used it in meaningful, real ways that didn't look like the ways that I may have dreamt of when I was 15, right? But now, and I remember thinking that at 23 and being like, what am I going to do with this? And God, step by step, led me in that way. And thank God for that. I've been able to use those things for way better. I mean, I got ahead of it a little bit. And it was great. I encourage you, if you have things in your life that you're good at and that you want to enjoy and you don't know how to give them to God, pray, Lord, show me how to use these for you. To have good ambition because you may be ambitious, you may be creative, you may be strong-willed, you may be disagreeable or really agreeable, you may be kind, you may have a heart for the broken. Ask God to use this, and guess what? Those are pieces of your calling, and he will apply them to your life. Read the word. It will jump out at you. I hope that our word today from scripture has jumped out at you. Our quotes have jumped out to you. That this parable has taken truth for us today and synthesized it into how we can live it.